A major shift is rattling the U.S. agricultural sector, sparked by a bold decision north of the border. Canada's latest move has left many American farmers bracing for impact. Whether you're in the industry or simply concerned about what's on your dinner table, here's a closer look at what's unfolding. For decades, the United States and Canada have cooperated like neighbors who share nearly everything, especially in the realm of agriculture. American producers relied on Canadian customers to purchase staples such as wheat, beef, and dairy, while Canadian farmers found a dependable market for their own goods in the U.S. Crucial trade agreements, starting with NAFTA and later the USMCA, helped maintain a steady flow of crops, livestock, and dairy across the border, benefiting both economies. Today, however, those close ties are under strain. Quick question: should Canada accept President Trump's proposal to become part of the United States? Share your thoughts in the comments section. The situation took a sharp turn when Washington imposed a 25% tariff on several Canadian products, including major agricultural exports. The objective? To protect American industry and reduce the trade deficit. Canada quickly responded with its own tariffs on items such as corn, soybeans, and beef from the U.S., leaving the farming community caught in the crossfire. Among those hit hardest by the trade standoff are dairy farmers, who've seen Canada go from a top buyer of U.S. dairy goods to a market weighed down by higher import costs. The result is lower sales, diminished revenue, and a mounting financial crisis for many dairy operations. Some are hanging on by a thread, scrambling to make ends meet as their losses pile up. Corn and soybean producers are also feeling the pressure. Previously, Canada was a dependable destination for these grains, but that revenue stream is quickly disappearing. With warehouses piling up with unsold harvests and global competitors circling, growers are facing a steep drop in prices. This prolonged strain is taking a toll on an entire sector that finds it tougher each day to navigate the changing marketplace. Meanwhile, livestock operations have taken a serious hit of their own. Beef and pork sales to Canada once served as a stable source of income, but new barriers have caused markets to cool rapidly. Farm owners now face the double blow of falling returns and rising operating costs. Some have begun scaling back production. Others are desperately seeking new customers to keep themselves afloat. At the same time, the gulf between smaller, family-run farms and large corporate conglomerates is widening. Bigger operations, armed with substantial funding, can endure short-term losses and wait for better days. For small farms, however, there is no such safety net. Many are being forced to sell, allowing industrial-scale farms to grow even larger. Observers warn that this shift might permanently alter the face of American agriculture. Adding to the uncertainty is the human toll on those who work in this unpredictable industry. Weather extremes, volatile markets, and now a trade war have made farming even more stressful. Rising incidents of anxiety and mental health issues within farm communities highlight the very real emotional cost of these economic pressures, affecting not just business plans, but entire families and towns. The ripple effects don't end with farmers themselves. Every link in the chain, from farm equipment dealers and food processors to local cafes that thrive on farmer patronage, feels the fallout. As tensions climb, global attention has shifted to whether or not the U.S. and Canada can resolve their differences. Other nations have also stepped in to fill the void. China, Mexico, and parts of the European Union now see fresh opportunities to capture the trade once flowing between North American partners. While this might pave the way for American producers to explore new export avenues, transitioning to unfamiliar markets is far from simple. Various countries bring their own regulations, consumer preferences, and logistical hurdles. Shifting operations in this way involves significant time, money, and risk. Furthermore, an increased dependency on markets scattered around the globe brings its own vulnerabilities. Political issues, economic downturns, and abrupt policy changes can spark unpredictable fluctuations, adding still more uncertainty to an already challenging business environment. As producers look for ways to adapt, technology is emerging as a bright spot. Tools like precision agriculture can streamline everything from water usage to fertilizer application, boosting yields and keeping expenses under control. Yet upgrades come with steep price tags, and in today's climate of financial insecurity, many growers hesitate to make such substantial commitments. Some worry that not investing in innovation could be just as risky as spending money they might not recover. In the long run, this trade dispute could reshape the entire farming landscape of North America. If tariffs persist, both U.S. and Canadian producers may need to adjust their methods, restructure supply chains, and reevaluate long-standing trade relationships. Worst-case scenarios have smaller farms being forced out, facing untenable costs and unstable markets, leaving large-scale agribusiness to consolidate its power. Still, there's a chance that the current crisis could lead to long-term improvements if these neighboring countries find a way to cooperate again. With thoughtful negotiation, updated trade deals, and smart use of new technologies, the ordeal might ultimately spur better, more sustainable farming practices on both sides of the border. Major changes are hitting global farming, and the U.S.-Canada trade dispute is at the center of it all. Agriculture doesn't just put food on the table, it's a major force in the world economy. When key commodities like grains, meat, or dairy get caught in a trade standoff, the consequences spill over far beyond any single border. Right now, governments everywhere are tuning in to watch how Washington and Ottawa handle their disagreements, because this clash is part of a broader global trend. Nations rethinking trade partnerships, safeguarding local industries, and diversifying their economic options. Canada, for instance, isn't waiting around for tensions to cool. Instead, it's actively reshaping its trade networks. Markets in the European Union and China have become prime targets, helping the country reduce its reliance on American buyers. This approach is already bearing fruit, with higher demand for exports like canola, soybeans, and wheat in regions that previously didn't buy as much from Canada. Strengthening ties with China, in particular, hints at massive growth potential, though it also brings a fresh set of hurdles. Shifting policies, competitive rivals, and political frictions mean nothing is guaranteed. Even so, Canada's willingness to adapt this quickly is turning heads worldwide. Meanwhile, farmers in the United States are in a tough spot. After long counting on Canadian purchases, they now face tariffs that push up costs and cut into profits. Government leaders in Washington argue these protective measures are meant to correct trade imbalances and give local economies a boost. But the reality on American farms is more complicated. Prices for corn, soybeans, and other staples keep fluctuating, and the looming uncertainty makes it difficult for producers to plan for next season or decide on future crops. Some American farmers see new opportunities in untapped or underexplored global markets. Yet establishing relationships with different regions takes time, paperwork, and money. Other nations are also fighting to place their agricultural products in front of the same buyers, which only heightens the competition. This situation has prompted many U.S. farmers and industry advocates to call on policymakers for a more nuanced strategy. Instead of blanket tariffs, they're pressing for solutions that balance domestic priorities with the realities of international trade. The pressure is mounting on lawmakers to find a path that keeps agriculture stable and the overall economy strong. Authorities in both countries have stepped in with relief measures. On the Canadian side, financial safety nets and targeted subsidies are softening the blow for farmers caught in the crossfire. Meanwhile, the U.S. has introduced trade mitigation payments and direct aid, short-term fixes that help offset sudden losses. But critics say these moves are merely temporary patches. As farmers themselves point out, government checks can't replace the long-term stability that clear, consistent trade policy brings. Beyond farms, entire supply chains could be disrupted. Food processing plants, shipping companies, and retailers all depend on the smooth flow of agricultural goods across borders. As tariffs stack up and each side enacts tighter controls, businesses face delays and more paperwork, complications that inevitably translate into higher prices for consumers. Dairy, for example, could be hit on both ends. U.S. shoppers might see fewer or pricier Canadian items, and Canadian stores could see higher costs for goods from south of the border. Countries like Mexico, which trade heavily with both the U.S. and Canada, feel these ripples too. Adjusting supply chains is a complex process, and companies must scramble to keep products moving. As a result, many nations are signing broader trade agreements to ensure they're not left stranded by any one partner. Whether that means joining regional pacts like the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP, or forging new bilateral deals, the aim is to safeguard export opportunities and reduce reliance on a single major buyer or seller. So where do farmers go from here? Americans might look to Latin America or Asia for fresh markets, while Canadians could deepen partnerships with Europe and China. Each side will likely push for policies that shield agriculture from future shocks. Still, one lesson is loud and clear. The tussle between the U.S. and Canada reflects bigger currents in world trade. Gone are the days when cross-border transactions ran on autopilot. Those willing to shift their strategies could find new doors opening. Above all, this moment underlines how fluid international trade really is. Countries, businesses, and entire industries rely on global markets, but they need to be ready for sudden changes in policy, competition, or economic power. For now, the spotlight remains on the U.S. and Canada, and farmers everywhere will be watching closely to see how it all plays out.